The sky tore open like paper burning in reverse. Bright cracks of light spread across the clouds, twisting the color of the day into a strange glowing blue. People on Earth didn't understand what was coming, not until it was already too late. It wasn't a warning, it was an entrance. Jace was walking back from his late shift when the first wave hit. It didn't look like ships or bombs, it was silence. Everything stopped. No sound from the air, no birds, no wind. Even his footsteps on the sidewalk made no noise. He froze, heart pounding. Something was deeply wrong. He turned and saw a ripple. Like the air itself had become water, then came the shadow. A massive shape hovered above the city, casting darkness over the streets. The shape was too smooth, too curved, too alive to be a machine. People screamed and ran, but it didn't shoot. It just waited. Over the next hour, the world realized Earth was no longer alone. Ships appeared in the sky over every capital city. The invaders didn't speak or fire, they simply watched. Jace watched with them, standing still, eyes fixed on the largest craft that hovered over the city like a watching eye. Then came the voice. Not from speakers. It came inside people's minds, calm, female, soft, yet strong. We are the seers of Nell. We come to prevent the collapse. Most people didn't understand what that meant. But Jace felt something strange in his chest, like her voice had touched his soul. That same night, soldiers began disappearing. Not killed, vanished. Drones stopped working in certain zones. Governments panicked. Earth's defenses were useless. Some groups welcomed the aliens. Others tried to fight. But nothing worked. The invaders seemed to know every move before it happened. Jace wasn't anyone special. He didn't work for the military. He wasn't a scientist or a leader. But one night while hiding in the basement of an abandoned diner, someone appeared outside. A girl, glowing with pale violet skin, long silver hair falling over golden eyes. She stumbled forward and whispered his name. He ran to her before he could think. She collapsed in his arms, trembling, bleeding from her side. Her dress looked like it was made of starlight. He pressed his hand to her wound, trying to stop the bleeding. But she wasn't just hurt. She was fading. Like her body wasn't fully here. Jace, she whispered again. You're the key. You're the change. He stared at her, heart racing. Her voice sounded like the one that had spoken inside his head days ago. But this wasn't a projection. She was real. Her skin was warm. Her tears were real. She clutched his shirt like she knew him. Before he could speak, a sharp sound rang out from the forest beyond the diner. A high-pitched pulse. Her body jerked. She gasped in pain. They followed me, she said, her voice shaking. You have to run. But Jace didn't move. He held her tighter. His instincts screamed at him to protect her. He lifted her in his arms and ran through the broken alley. She was light, like she didn't weigh much at all. Her golden necklace blinked with strange patterns. Her breath slowed. I saw this, she whispered. I saw you. You chose to stay. Her eyes locked onto his. That choice changes everything. Behind them, something crashed into the diner. A flash of red light exploded into the sky. Whatever had chased her wasn't human. Jace didn't look back. He dove through the trees, heart pounding in rhythm. With hers, she tightened her grip as if afraid he'd vanish if she let go. They reached a small cave near the river. He laid her down gently, checking her wound again. She smiled weakly. You're the only timeline that survives, she said. Others failed, others died, but not this one. Not with you. Jace didn't understand, but her words stayed with him. He asked her name. She paused. Celira, she answered. I see what may be, but I came because I saw you. Her voice cracked, but her eyes held strength. And I chose this timeline. I chose you. He stared at her, trying to process what he was hearing. She smiled as if she already knew his thoughts. Jace sat beside her through the night. guarding the cave entrance. The strange red lights passed through the sky, searching. She whispered things in her sleep, names, places, events. Some he recognized. Most he didn't, but every word sounded like truth. At dawn, she opened her eyes and whispered one more sentence. They'll kill the future unless we change it now. Jace didn't know how, but he believed her with everything in him. Asterisk. Celira rested in the cave, her breathing slow but steady. The early morning light filtered through the leaves above, painting gold on her pale violet skin. Jace knelt beside her, still shaken by the night. He had no idea who she truly was, but something deep in his chest told him she mattered. Her body shimmered faintly under the light. It wasn't just her skin or the strange symbols glowing on her neck. It was like time bent around her, like she didn't fully belong to this moment. He placed his jacket gently over her as she stirred and whispered his name again. He didn't know how she knew him. He didn't know why she said he was the key. But he couldn't ignore the way she looked at him, as if his choices carried the weight of worlds. He checked the entrance of the cave. The forest beyond was quiet now, too quiet. He walked to the stream and dipped a bottle into the cold water. As he returned, he saw her eyes open fully. She sat up slowly, wincing. "They'll come again," she said, her voice firm despite her weakness, but not yet. "We have time to reach the stone." "The stone?" Jace asked, confused. She nodded. "The memory stone. I placed it in this timeline to guide me back. But now that I'm here, I can't retrieve it alone." She tried to stand, nearly falling, and Jace rushed to catch her again. She looked up at him and smiled. "I saw you help me," she said softly, "even when others turned away. In other timelines you refused, in this one you stay. And that makes the future change." Jace didn't understand all her words, but he felt the weight of them press into his soul. She leaned against him as they walked slowly through the woods. The air felt strange, like every step could break something unseen. Birds returned to the sky above, but they didn't sing. The silence between him and Celira held more meaning than words. They crossed into a field of glowing moss. Celira stopped and pointed. "There," she whispered. A single tree stood in the middle of the field, its bark smooth and black like polished stone. "The stone is beneath it. But there will be a test." Jace didn't like the sound of that. "A test?" he asked. She didn't answer at first. She walked to the base of the tree and knelt. As she pressed her hand to the roots, the ground trembled. A beam of light shot upward from beneath the earth. The field rippled like water. Something began to rise from the soil. A shape. Humanoid, mirror-like. It had no face, no features. Just a reflection. And it reflected Jace, exactly. Same face. Same eyes, same voice when it spoke. "Will you protect her, even when it breaks you?" Jace blinked. "What is this?" he asked, stepping back. Celira stayed silent. The mirror Jace repeated the question. "Will you protect her, even when it breaks you?" The real Jace clenched his fists. "Yes," he said quietly. "I don't understand everything, but I won't let her fall." The mirror smiled. A crack spread across its chest. Light poured out, then it shattered into pieces of silver dust. The ground settled. The glow faded. Beneath the roots, a stone the size of Jace's hand rose slowly from the earth. It pulsed with soft blue light. Celira stepped forward and touched it. Her eyes closed. The stone lit up like a star. Symbols danced across its surface, faster than human eyes could follow. Her body swayed, and Jace caught her before she fell. Her breath was shallow again, but she smiled. "The timeline is beginning to shift," she said softly. "The others will feel it soon. The seers, the hunters. They'll try to correct it. They'll try to kill you to stop it." Jace looked down at the stone, then back at her. "Then we make sure they fail." He wrapped the stone in cloth and tied it to his belt. Salira touched his chest right over his heart. This moment wasn't meant to exist, she whispered. You're already rewriting fate. He didn't know how to reply. He just nodded and helped her stand. They moved through the forest again, keeping low and silent. Salira leaned on him heavily now. Her strength was fading faster than before. Whatever power she used was draining her. But her eyes were still full of purpose. She hadn't come this far to give up. As the sun reached its peak, they found shelter inside an old transport station, half buried in vines. The walls were cracked and the machines inside long dead. But it gave them a place to rest. Salira sat against the wall, her eyes closed, holding the stone to her chest. Jace stood guard. Every small sound made his muscles tense. The enemy could be anywhere. These hunters she spoke of, they hadn't shown their faces yet. But if they were anything like the thing that attacked the diner, he knew they wouldn't be human. He checked the power lines on the wall. One flickered, just barely. Some backup energy source was still alive. He managed to get a small terminal running. Lines of alien code filled the screen. Salira opened her eyes and began to speak the translation aloud. The station belonged to the Seers once, she said, long ago. They left echoes of themselves in their tech, messages, warnings, and sometimes choices. She pressed her hand to the panel. A soft hum answered, and the room began to glow faintly. A holographic map appeared in the air. It showed Earth, but not just Earth. It showed branches like tree limbs stretching from it into other worlds. Other times, other possible futures. Salira pointed to one glowing red line. That one leads to extinction. That's the one they want. Jace's breath caught. And this one? He asked, pointing to a blue line that pulsed near their location. She nodded. That's ours, and it's fading. Every second we hesitate, it grows dimmer. We need the second stone to make it hold. He didn't ask where the second stone was. He simply picked up his pack, helped her to her feet, and said, "Then let's go get it." Jace helped Salira down the broken slope of the forest trail. Her steps were slower now. Her skin glowed faintly, and the crystal on her forehead dimmed. But her grip on his shoulder was strong. She hadn't given up, not yet. The map she activated at the old station burned into Jace's mind. A single blue line, pulsing weaker by the second. One path to survival. One that depended on two people running through ruined Earth with nothing but a memory stone and blind trust. Where is the second stone? Jace asked. Salira turned her head toward the distant hills. It fell with one of us, another seer. She didn't make it to you. She died before she reached the right moment. But the stone remembers. They reached a wide road that had been swallowed by vines. Cracked signs pointed in all directions, but none were readable. Salira knelt and touched the ground. For a second, the earth beneath her pulsed. Then she pointed north. She crashed here, she said. Her name was Inari. She was my sister, not by blood. By choice, she knew the risks. We all did. But she gave her life for this shift. Her body is gone, but her imprint still lingers. Jace said nothing. He only adjusted his grip on his bag and kept walking beside her. The road twisted through abandoned ruins. A bus lay on its side, vines wrapped through shattered windows. Children's toys were scattered across the moss-covered seats. Humans built beautiful things, Salira said gently. But even beauty can't stop decay. That's why the future needs correction. Not to erase what you were, but to give you a chance to grow beyond what you became. They arrived at a circular pit surrounded by stone. The ground was cracked, scorched, and pulsing faintly. Salira pointed. She fell here. The stone will still remember the last choice she made. Jace helped her down into the center of the pit. She closed her eyes and whispered in a language Jace didn't know. Symbols floated above her hands. Then the air grew cold. The wind stilled. A soft hum rose from the ground. And then, like a hand rising from a grave, the second memory stone appeared. It floated in the air, wrapped in glowing ribbons of light. Jace reached for it. The moment his fingers touched the surface, he saw something he wasn't supposed to see. A vision, a flash, a battlefield, Celira screaming. Him covered in blood, fire raining from above, his breath caught. The vision vanished, the stone dimmed and dropped into his hand. Celira's eyes opened wide. It showed you, didn't it? She asked. Jace nodded. He didn't speak. She placed a hand on his arm and said, "It's only one future. You can still change it." Suddenly, a sound cracked through the air, a high-pitched shriek followed by a rumble. Trees snapped in the distance. The sky darkened. Celira stood up quickly. "They found us. We have to move now." Jace didn't argue. He grabbed her hand and ran. From the forest edge, shadows poured like smoke, not machines. Not people, hunters, cloaked in shifting armor, eyes burning red. They didn't fly. They floated. They didn't speak. They hissed. Their presence made the air tremble. Jace fired a flare into the trees, hoping to distract them. It lit the woods in white fire. The creatures paused. It bought them seconds. That's all he needed. He pulled Celira behind a fallen satellite dish and pressed his back against the metal. The hunters scanned the area, emitting pulses of red light. Celira whispered, "They see through probability. They look for broken timelines." The memory stones confused them for a moment, but not forever. Jace tightened his grip on his weapon. He reached into his pack and pulled out a smoke charge from an old survival kit. He counted silently, then threw it far to the left. The explosion drew the hunters toward it. He and Celira ran right, ducking through bushes and wreckage. A burned-out structure appeared ahead. Once a power station, now just twisted metal and ash. They slipped inside. Jace sealed the door behind them with a pipe. Inside, the scent of melted plastic and rust filled the air. Celira collapsed onto a support beam. Her hands shook. Her eyes glowed dimly. "The second stone gave you a vision," she said. "It showed the cost, but not the result. That's because the future bends around you now. You're the variable." Jace sat beside her, breathing hard. He stared at the stone in his hand. It was cold now, silent, but he could still feel its weight. Not just in his palm, but in his chest. "What do we do with them?" he asked. Celira looked toward the cracked ceiling. "We take them to the convergence," she said. "That's where the timelines collide, where they try to rewrite reality. If we reach it with both stones intact, we force a permanent divergence. The hunters can't chase us past that point." "And where is this convergence?" Jace asked. She looked at him and smiled faintly. "Beneath the old capital. Deep under the ruins of what humans once called Haven 1. That's where your kind first tried to unite the world. Now it's where we'll give it a future." They rested for only minutes. The sound of the hunters returned. Fainter now, but closing in. Jace checked his gear, secured the stones, and helped Celira to her feet. She was weaker now, but her spirit hadn't cracked. Her hand tightened around his. They moved through hidden tunnels under the ruins. Old train lines, service corridors, collapsed paths. Every few meters, Jace stopped to listen. Every breath felt like it echoed through history. Finally, they emerged from a rusted hatch onto a cliffside. In the distance, under a layer of green and gold fog, the ruins of Haven 1 stood. Tall towers broken by time. Bridges snapped in half. And deep beneath it, the convergence awaited. Jace looked at the ruined city. Celira stepped beside him, her eyes glowing faintly again. "This is the part I didn't see," she whispered. "From here, the path is unwritten. Asterisk." The wind howled across the broken towers of Haven 1. The city, once full of light and life, now stood as twisted steel and shattered glass. Vines crept up the sides of buildings. and the sky above pulsed with golden clouds. Time itself felt slower here. Jace stood at the cliff's edge, eyes fixed on the ruined capital. His breath misted in the cool air. Celira rested beside him, her energy low but steady. "This place was once your future," she said softly. "Now it's a battlefield of timelines." They made their way down the rocky slope, stepping over collapsed bridges and broken cables. Each step echoed like thunder in the silence. Birds didn't fly here. The air tasted sharp. The city was watching, or something inside it was. Celira touched a wall as they entered the outer district. Her hand shimmered, and the metal responded with a faint hum. "The convergence is below the central tower," she said. "But it won't be unguarded. The timeline protectors are here." Jace tightened his grip on his weapon. "Hunters?" he asked. Celira nodded. "And others. Broken versions of us. Failed versions. They exist here, trapped in fragments. Their purpose is to stop this change. They believe the collapse must happen." They crossed through an old monorail station, its rails twisted and rusted. Inside, faint blue lights flickered as if trying to remember their purpose. Jace helped Celira step over fallen beams. Her body grew colder by the hour, but her eyes still burned with fire. "Are you sure you can make it?" Jace asked. Celira didn't answer right away. Then she smiled. "I saw this far. My steps remain steady because you are beside me. Without you, I would have fallen long before now." A sudden crash echoed from the tower's base. Something heavy had landed. The sky dimmed. Red lights blinked through the mist. Celira froze. "They're here. Multiple hunters. 4, maybe more. We'll have to move fast." Jace nodded. They moved through an alley of tilted buildings. The walls bent unnaturally, like gravity had shifted sideways. Time was broken here. In one window, a coffee cup floated midair, frozen in a single moment. In another, rain fell upward. They reached the base of the tower. The door was gone, melted into slag. Celira stepped through the frame, and the inside lit up. A large circular chamber greeted them, walls lined with ancient machines. A platform in the center glowed faint blue. "That's it," she whispered. "The convergence gate. The stones must be placed in the cradle. Once activated, it will lock the future to our path. But it will draw them to us instantly." Jace helped her climb the stairs to the platform. As she opened her hands, the 2 memory stones floated upward, circling each other, the room filled with light. Then came the sound. A low pulse, followed by silence. Then came the screams. The hunters appeared at the chamber's edge, slipping through shadows like liquid metal. Red eyes locked onto Jace. They didn't speak. They didn't hesitate. They attacked. Jace raised his weapon and fired. The first shot blasted through one creature's chest, but it didn't fall. It twisted, reformed, and lunged forward. Jace rolled, pulling Celira behind a console. "Keep working the stones," he shouted. "I'll hold them." She nodded and placed her hands into the light. Her body trembled. Symbols spun around her. She whispered in her own language, and the stones pulsed brighter. A vortex of blue light opened in the air above the platform. Jace fought with every breath. The hunters were fast, nearly invisible. One slammed into him and sent him crashing into a wall. He stood again, blood on his face, rage in his heart. He grabbed a broken pipe and swung it with all his strength. It connected. The hunter cracked, then exploded into ash. But 2 more took its place. Jace kept moving, dodging, striking. Every second he held them back was another second for Celira to finish the sequence. Celira's voice rose. The light thickened into threads of glowing time. The platform began to shake. The air split with thunder. One hunter leapt for her. Jace tackled it mid-air, slamming it into the ground. It screeched and bit into his arm. Pain burned through his nerves. He didn't stop. He used the last charge in his flare gun and fired point blank into the creature's mouth. It burst into red mist. Jace fell back, gasping, barely able to lift his arm. The final hunter stood between him and Celira. It raised a blade made of black light. Jace moved to shield her, but Celira stood first. She held both stones above her head. The light blinded everything. The hunter screamed as it was pulled into the vortex. The stones locked into place. The air solidified. Time froze. Then broke. The entire chamber flashed once, then went still. The vortex faded. Only Jace and Celira remained, kneeling on the platform. She looked at him and smiled. "It's done," she whispered. "The convergence is sealed. This future will live. You chose the right path." Jace dropped beside her, exhausted. The air felt lighter now. The red sky above was turning pale. A soft breeze moved to the tower like breath returning to a sleeping world. Celira leaned into him. Her skin no longer glowed, but she was warm. "Thank you," she said. "You carried me farther than I ever saw in my visions." He wrapped an arm around her as the first clear sunlight broke through the clouds above them. The tower stood in silence as the dust settled. Light filtered through broken beams, no longer red, but soft and golden. The air felt new, as if the world itself had taken a deep breath for the first time in years. Jace sat with Celira beside him, both too tired to speak. They had changed something. He didn't know what exactly, but he felt it in his bones. The pressure that had followed them since the first invasion was gone. The air no longer buzzed with unseen eyes. Time itself had become stable again. Celira's hands trembled as she let go of the memory stones. They no longer floated. Their glow faded slowly, now just quiet orbs resting on the cold metal floor. "The timeline is locked," she said weakly. "No one can shift it now." "Not even me." Jace helped her sit upright. Her body leaned against his shoulder. She was lighter than ever, but somehow she still radiated strength. "You look like you've aged 10 years, he said with a tired smile. She looked up at him and gave the smallest laugh. "I've lived 10,000 timelines," she said. "What's 10 years to someone like me?" Her eyes closed briefly, but she wasn't sleeping. She was listening, feeling. The silence is good. It means we're not being followed anymore. Jace stood slowly and walked to the platforms. Edge, the city below, looked different. It was still ruined, but something had changed. Moss grew brighter. Wind flowed cleaner. The broken city now felt like it could be rebuilt. He turned back toward her. "What happens now?" he asked. Celira looked at the memory stones. "They must be hidden. Their power is too great. If someone finds them and tries to change things again, the future will fall apart." Together, they moved slowly down from the tower. Jace wrapped the stones in cloth and tucked them deep inside a rusted storage pod, hidden behind old machinery. Celira sealed the hatch with symbols only she could write. "No one will open it, unless the world truly ends again," she said. Jace nodded and looked up at the sky. Blue was starting to break through the clouds. For the first time he saw a flock of birds passing freely above the buildings. They found a resting place in the hollow of a nearby structure. It had once been a library. Shelves still stood, full of dust and broken dreams. Jace cleared a space and laid out what little supplies they had left. Celira leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. "You're not from this world," he said. "But you speak like you've known it forever." Celira opened her eyes and looked at him. "I studied your people before I came. Every seer chooses a target world. I chose yours, not because of your weapons, because of your heart." He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. She reached out and held his hand. "In most timelines you never even look at me. In one, you kill me, but in this one, you carried me. You protected me. And because of that, your world lives. Jace looked into her golden eyes. "Then this timeline was worth all the pain," he said. "Even if no one else remembers it, I will." She smiled at him gently and leaned her head against his shoulder. Sat there for a long time. Outside, the wind began to carry the sound of voices. Survivors. Humans moving again. Rebuilding. The capital wasn't dead anymore. It was wounded but healing. Salira looked toward the broken doorway. "I have to return soon," she said quietly. "My body doesn't belong here. I've reached the edge of what I can hold." Jace stood suddenly. "You're leaving?" She nodded. "It's the rule. Once the timeline locks, the seer must return. I'm not meant to stay." His fists clenched. "But we did this together. I don't want to lose you now." She rose to her feet slowly and touched his face. "You're not losing me. You'll remember me. And that memory will shape everything that comes next." A glow formed around her feet. The air shimmered. Her body was fading gently, not in pain, but in peace. Her presence became light. "You'll rebuild your world," she said. "You'll lead others. You'll teach them why the future must be earned, not forced." Tears welled in his eyes. He stepped forward, trying to hold on to her. But his hands passed through her form like mist. She smiled one last time. "Goodbye, Jace. Thank you for choosing this path." With that, her body dissolved into threads of light. They floated upward, through the cracks in the ceiling, into the new sky. He stood in silence, breath held, heart full. The memory of her voice echoed inside him like a quiet song. Outside, people had started gathering. Survivors from nearby settlements. They followed the beacon of light that had risen from the tower. Jace stepped forward and faced them. He said nothing at first. Then he pointed to the skyline. "She gave us a future," he said firmly. "Now it's our job to live like we deserve it." The world had changed, but the scars of the old one remained. Jace walked through the ruins of Haven 1, now busy with survivors building shelters from metal sheets and stone. Children played where buildings had collapsed. Fires warmed hands. Instead of burning cities, no one knew about Salira. No one remembered the name, but Jace did. He remembered everything. And because of that, he never let anyone forget what sacrifice looked like. He became a voice among the people. Not a ruler, not a soldier. Just a man who had seen the edge of time and stepped back with a purpose. When others grew angry, he calmed them. When fear took hold, he gave them courage. Some called him the last fire of the old world. Others called him the first spark of the new one. He accepted neither title. All he wanted was to protect what she had left behind. The memory stones were still hidden beneath the tower. Jace never told anyone where. He would visit the site often, standing above the sealed chamber. Sometimes he could still feel warmth in the ground beneath his feet. Years passed. Cities began to rise again. Farms pushed through cracked soil. Skies cleared. The strange glow that once filled the clouds faded into blue. But even as peace returned, Jace felt something waiting. One morning before the sun had climbed the hills, a strange signal reached him through the rebuilt comms tower. Static, then a pulse. Then a sound like a voice inside his chest. It was faint, but familiar. He rose from his bed and stared out at the horizon. The sound came again, stronger this time. Not a word, not a sentence, just a rhythm. Like breathing. Like memory. Like time calling back to itself. He left the town behind, heading alone into the forest. He carried no weapons. Only the crystal charm Salira had left behind. The ground guided him, not with trails or maps. With instinct. With something deeper than thought, he reached the old cliffside by sunset. The tower still stood in silence, wrapped in green. The air felt warm. As he stepped inside, the wind died. The chamber below glowed faintly. A light he hadn't seen in years. He walked down slowly. The memory stones were no longer cold. They hovered gently, spinning in the air above the platform. Their glow pulsed with steady rhythm. Then came the voice. "Jace," it said. "You remembered." He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. "Salira," he whispered. Her form began to take shape. Not flesh, not shadow. A memory made of light. But it was her voice, her presence, her smile. "I couldn't stay," she said. "But you gave my choice meaning. You gave this timeline a soul." He stepped closer. "I never stopped thinking about you." She looked down. "I know. That's why I returned. Only for a moment. To finish what we started." The platform beneath them pulsed. She pointed to the memory stones. They were meant to guide and protect. But now they can do more. If joined, they can become a beacon. A signal across time, not to bring others. To remind this world never to repeat the fall. Jace didn't hesitate. He stepped forward and touched both stones. They flared with heat and light. The room filled with wind. Visions swirled through the air of past wars, of futures that never came, of choices made in silence. Salira placed her hand over his. "With your touch, they remember hope. With your heart, they remember love. Now they will remember peace." The stones merged into one, becoming a sphere of white fire. It floated above them, then rose through the ceiling like a star climbing the sky. From every corner of Earth, people looked up and saw it shining. Salira turned back to Jace. Her form began to fade again. But this time, it didn't feel like loss. It felt like a door gently closing. "You don't need me anymore," she said softly. "This world is yours now. Lead it gently." Jace nodded. "I will, I promise." She smiled, then spoke her last words. "Then this truly is the future I saw." The chamber dimmed. Silence returned, but it was not empty. It was full of memory, full of meaning. Jace walked out of the tower as the white light spread across the sky like a second sun. That night, the people named the light the future flame. It never faded. It never moved. It became a symbol of what they had survived, and what they had chosen to protect. Years passed like pages in the wind. Jace grew older, but the fire inside him stayed the same. The world healed around him. Cities rose from ruins, not with machines, but with hands working together. People no longer feared the skies. The future flame still burned above the old capital. Bright, steady, untouched by storm or time. No one could explain how it stayed. Scientists studied it. Leaders guarded it. Children wished upon it. But only Jace knew the truth. It was her memory, her promise, her final gift. And he had made sure. The world deserved it. Jace lived near the edge of the rebuilt Haven One. His home was simple: wood, stone, and light. He taught young ones about history, not from books, but from his voice. He told stories of what the world had been, and what it had almost become, but he never spoke Salira's name. That part of the story was only his. It stayed safe inside him, guarded like a flame too fragile to share. Every night, he would look to the sky and whisper words no one else heard. One morning, a messenger came to his door. A child holding a strange device wrapped in cloth. "This was found under the roots of the old tower," the child said. Jace took it gently. When he touched the surface, the device activated. It showed a vision: a desert planet, a shattered moon, a seer limping through smoke. She reached into her cloak and pulled out a small shard, one of the old memory stones. Then she spoke, though the words were broken and faint. "To whoever finds this, the collapse has begun again, in another corner of space. Timeline locked on failure, need guidance, need witness." The message flickered, then ended. Jace stared at the device in silence. He knew what it meant. Somewhere far beyond Earth, another world had fallen to the same mistakes. Another seer had tried to stop it. And now someone else needed to choose. He walked to the flame that night. The people watched him as he climbed the old tower. He hadn't done so in years. They didn't follow, they simply waited. At the top, he stood alone and placed the shard into the heart of the platform. The flame dimmed for a moment, then surged higher. A thread of light shot into the stars, leaving behind a trail of gold. The shard was gone, but its message had been heard. Jace stood quietly as the stars above shifted. From that day on, things changed again. Not suddenly, not loudly, but with steady motion. Earth became more than a place of survival. It became a guide, a symbol. Others began reaching out. New signals, new species, new voices. Jace trained the next generation to listen before they fought, to understand before they judged. He didn't teach them how to win wars. He taught them how to prevent them. When the first visitors from another world arrived, they landed beneath the flame. They didn't bring weapons. They brought seeds, knowledge. Their first question was simple. How did your people survive the collapse? Jace gave them one answer. We remembered her. Time moved forward. Jace's body slowed, but his mind remained sharp. His hair turned white. His steps became fewer. One evening, as the sun set behind the towers of Haven 1, he sat beneath the flame and watched the sky turn red and gold. A soft breeze touched his face. He closed his eyes. The warmth reminded him of her hands. The glow above reminded him of her voice. For a moment, the world went quiet. He felt light again, as if the years had fallen away. When the people found him the next morning, he was still seated beneath the flame, peaceful, eyes closed, a soft smile on his face. He had left without pain, without fear. His journey had ended where it began. They buried him at the base of the tower, where the stones once pulsed. On his grave, they carved no titles. Only a single line. He carried the light forward. Years later, children still sat by the tower to hear his story. And though no one had seen her, they drew her face in books and carved her name in hidden places. Salira, the seer who chose humanity. The girl who saw a future worth saving. And above them, the flame burned on, reminding every living soul that time could break, but it could also heal.